Caught in crossfire and injured in a deadly shooting in Charleston, South Carolina. Jive this morning, two Maine women are caught in crossfire and injured in a deadly shooting in Charleston, South Carolina. Jive Cycling Studio in Portland, which has a location in Charleston, sharing on social media that two members of their team, were bystanders in the shooting and were injured Sunday morning. They're both currently stable, but still in the ICU. According to police down in Charleston, the suspected shooter opened fire after an argument outside a pizza shop, killing one person and injuring the two Maine women who were bystanders. The alleged shooter has been arrested.
What happened to RFK Jr. and what happened to Make America Healthy Again? Let's go ahead and bring them in. Theo, how are you? Welcome back.
How you doing, Miss Savvy? Great to be back.
I'm doing great. So you reached out. I think you may have seen the video that I uploaded about RFK Jr. and his connection to Palantir. And you reached out and you said there's some things you want to say. So the floor is yours. You know, what happened to Make America Healthy Again?
Let me tell you something, Savvy. Having been there from the beginning, I think that there's a lot that's getting lost in translation. Because what happened with Bobby is that when he joins up with Trump, and I said this, you're not going to be able to get the stink of Trump off of you. The sooner you get closer to him, the harder it is going to be for you to get away from him. And if you bend the knee, you will never stop bending the knee. And so what happens is that he can't help it. he gets swept up into the orbit of those who are around Trump. And I remember during the campaign, one of the main issues that kind of made Bobby vulnerable to this kind of co-opting and corrupting, honestly, had to have been the fact that the DNC didn't give him any security. He was paying through the nose for that Gavin DeBecker security, man. I mean, I'm talking about, and he's a Kennedy, but that still is quite a heavy toll. So I just want you to know that that was one of the major concerns. And what you find is that it makes him vulnerable to the kind of compromise that we see right now. And when he actually joined up with Donald Trump, I remember saying to him that you have basically sculpted with this movement Thor's hammer, but only the worthy can wield it, right? And what I mean by that is that all the email lists, all the contacts, all the goodwill that was created with the independent campaign with Maha at the center, or the kind of health of medical freedom at the center. But if you give that away, then you're literally throwing this into whatever meat grinder that Trump is going to create for these folks. And that is a deeply dishonest man. And now I hate to be proven right about it, but the financial vulnerability that was created by the fact that he didn't get security, and the fact that it bled him dry, and the fact that he knocked on these doors that didn't open and finally joined up with Trump, doomed the Maha movement. And it's sad to see it happen.
So let me just tell people, those who may not have been paying attention at that point in time, when RFK Jr. was running, originally he was running in the Democratic Party, and he was running as a challenge to Joe Biden. There were multiple people that were trying to challenge Joe Biden at that time, and the DNC did not want to have a primary. So, there's a number of things that happened, but one of the things was that he was not allowed to have the security that all the presidential candidates get.
Right.
So Biden, for whatever reason, wouldn't give him that. What I understand, the other candidates did have, I know when I met with Dr. Cornel West, he had security. I know other people had security, but they wouldn't give it to RFK.
Right.
So you feel that is what kind of may have pushed him in the Trump direction.
Right, and see, you got to understand the gravity of not giving the son of Robert Kennedy Sr. security, right? You got to understand the history, and of course we do understand that history of the Kennedys being vulnerable to assassination. That's one of the first things that I thought about when I was asked to join the campaign was how are we going to keep this guy alive? First and foremost, how are we going to keep him alive? He's saying things that are upsetting the apple cart. You have to remember the fact that when he began, he's absolutely right. He tried to start as a Democrat. That's the party of his family. And the fact that he was closed out from the left, meaning that within the campaign, the left stopped being rewarded for their advice. And so I should have known something was crazy when Dennis Kucinich left. But when I first got involved, Dennis Kucinich took me under his wing because there was a coalition between the left and the right. That's what a lot of people don't understand. Because since he was an independent, the coalition with the left and the right meant that he would kind of have this crossfire of advisors that would kind of help him out do what he needed to do.
I think your picture is turned sideways for some reason. I think you. Can you hear me? Uh-oh, we lost Theo.
Just like you, everything we do the same. Or is that true? Girl, I love you, baby Jane. What would I do? Oh, without you. So put your love into this, girl, and don't you feel no shame. Just let us be, girl.
Right. So listen, from that place and time, I remember the fact that a number of issues began to arise, but one of the most important ones was, of course, Israel. One of the most important things that ended up coming up on the campaign trail, literally October 7th was the day that he announced independent, right? And of course, he got in trouble a little bit before that because he had said some things that were kind of tone deaf in regards to the lives of the Palestinians. My deepest fears came true. As soon as that happened, I saw the fact that, he jumped immediately onto Israel's side. And I can't necessarily blame somebody for being pro-Israel on October 8th, especially if you were already leaning that way. But by the time we saw what Netanyahu was doing, he had the opportunity. And what ended up going on was that we're making calls, people stop donating because they understand the tone deafness of it. All of this leads to the financial vulnerability of what ended up making him a part and parcel of Trump's regime. And so if you fast forward to the day that he joined up, I think that a lot of people now in America see Maha as MAGA. They see Maha as MAGA, and it's not. Maha, at least it wasn't. Let me be clear about that. Maha began as perhaps, I would say, the largest, perhaps I would think, independent movement that this country has seen in a generation. Bobby Kennedy's presidency was the biggest independent campaign since Ross Perot. And everybody in the campaign knew where to find him. Find Donald Trump. Everybody knew if they wanted to join MAGA, they knew where to go. That's not what these people were. When you look at the medical freedom movement, which is where Maha comes from, these are some of the best folks in America. They've been violated, they've been let down, they've been exposed to all manner of medical malpractice. The reason why I joined up is because at the time I was a Democrat, and Bobby Kennedy was the only one talking about the history of black folks being violated by the medical system during the time of the pandemic and our vaccine hesitancy being rooted in historically traumatic events that happened to us, right? And so the Maha contingent still needs their needs met. And unfortunately, his alignments with the people that he's with now will not allow that to happen. He hasn't closed any of the loopholes in the medical system that allowed the opioids to come in, that allowed the compromise that we see with the vaccine companies. He hasn't made anybody's life any safer. One of the most problematic things that happened in the administration recently was that Trump allowed glyphosates back in. This was back in February 26th of this year. We have a situation where now he's got one of Palantir's guys integrating Palantir software into the department that he's in charge of. Now, during the campaign, he was talking about how we need to attack these big businesses and make sure that we bring them to account to the American people. But the very fact that we have Palantir integrated software into our medical records means that we are absolutely vulnerable in the most private ways to the kind of data collection and harvesting and predatory practices that are in the Palantir system. And so when you look at the fact that the Maha people, the people who began the medical freedom movement, did so out of last resort. These folks had nowhere to go but to turn to each other, found a champion in Bobby. And now Bobby has done this to them. I am sorry. I am sorry for those folks. I'm sorry that they have to go through that. And I feel like nobody's at the wheel right now in the administration. Nobody is an adult in the room. But we understand how we got here.
Yes, Skylar, Palantir is in a, yes. This is something that I was trying to explain to people that RFK Jr. and his son, they are now connected to Palantir.
Yeah.
So it's just, a lot of people in this administration, they are looking out for themselves. They're furthering their goal. They're trying to make money for themselves on the side or for their kids or for whoever. So, and RFK is a part of that. But the point to take away from here is that you're saying that Maha existed prior to him joining with Donald Trump.
The roots of Maha are definitely in the medical freedom movement, 100%. I think that the first person to coin the term Maha was a guy named Del Bigtree. He runs a platform called the High Wire. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that Del Bigtree was the one who actually put that out there first, especially when it looked like they were joining up together. So, and this was, if it predated it, it's only slightly, but the Maha's roots are in medical freedom. Maha's roots are in the people who are fighting to just take the pollution out of our environment. A lot of these guys are environmentalists. Remember, Bobby did a lot of work as an environmentalist a long time before he ran for president. In fact, he was beloved for that. And so he ran the Children's Health Defense Fund, right? And the Children's Health Defense Fund, I was on the email list, and you know, that was people who were out there really doing the best that they could to hold Big Pharma to account, to put their feet to the fire. And you know, when we look at the vaccine mandate era, when we look at the pandemic era, we're looking at the place where the Democrats began to move the authoritarian needle forward in a way that's easy to forget in the Trump era. But during the lockdowns, they are the ones who moved the authoritarian needle forward, betraying all of their principles. This is a very topsy-turvy time, if you do remember, Savvy, because as somebody who worked for, like, you know, organizers in the community, people who believe in labor rights, forcing somebody to choose jab or your job is anti-labor, right? Making somebody show a vaccine card, right? We got HIPAA laws for that. We got OSHA laws for that, right? And these were the Democrats. These policies that I'm referring to came from the left. So for those of us who stuck to those principles, it seemed like the Democrats left us. And the coalition that was formed around that, the roots of that are the Children's Health Defense Fund. And that became the medical freedom movement. And that is the people who coalesced to find a champion in RFK Jr. And these people's needs are still unmet. These folks are still suffering.
Now, RFK Jr. said before the presidential election, he said that he reached out to both sides. He said he reached out to Kamala Harris's team and he reached out to Donald Trump's team. So let's say, I guess Kamala Harris's team was not interested in having that conversation, but let's say things went differently and they decided they were interested in having that conversation. What do you think would have come from that? Do you think, like the glyphosate issue, like do you think that would have been different? Do you think that he would have still aligned with Palantir?
You know what? I don't think so, because Palantir, Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, that's a coalition of guys, right? They've all been right-wing ideology supporters. They've all kind of had an anti-democratic thing about them. He probably might have been compromised in another way. But the thing is, Bobby shouldn't have went either way. The captain goes down with the ship, Savvy. The captain goes down with the ship. If you can just imagine that, right? You on a submarine or something and you know who you at war with, and then your captain be like, we joining him now. You're like, no, right? When you are the leader of a movement like this, and he had expanded so much further from where he began, by the time that he was joining up with Donald Trump, the infrastructure that he was in charge of could have been a force to be reckoned with, and he wouldn't have been a running joke in this country. He wouldn't have been a running joke in this country. That's the tough part. The tough part about all of this is seeing this guy who I know personally, who I thought I grew to know, shall I say, becoming basically like a stand-in for everything gross and backwards and disgusting. He's the butt of so many jokes, right? And that's kind of the price that he pays when you join up with a circus.
Yeah, I did, but I'd listen to that.
You should have gone down with the ship.
Yeah,
I don't think you should have been knocking on either door. I certainly advised him not to do that. Regardless of how the campaign ended, you go out on your shield. The people in the medical freedom movement that became the Maha movement.
Yeah, that might even have been back when we still had
You know, it's interesting. I remember him making that announcement that he was, you know, taking himself off of the ballot and that not to vote for him in certain states or something like that. But come election day, people still voted. He still got a number of votes. But I do remember some people were very upset when he decided at your point not to go down with the ship. I do remember that.
Hey, I think you know my son.
And I mean, listen, you know, you got a situation here where
Kids, career,
the Trump administration is doing something very interesting. They're contributing ultimately
Ty, we are literally
to the looting of America. America's being
parents or teens.
by these
Yeah.
crony
Yeah.
capitalists. He's joined the crony capitalists, the very ones that he said that he stood so far against. And
What is aura
I
and
got a
do I have
real
it?
baptismal lesson in
Why does
power
my daughter keep
in
calling me
that
brother?
campaign.
But when Ty
Power.
texted me, and I quote,
The ability to
meningitis
compel
Yeah,
one
I
to
know.
bend the
Greece?
knee.
Hold on
I'm the one trying to
I
bend
thought
no
this was
knee,
something we
right?
should take seriously
And I-
because honestly, I wasn't 100% sure what meningitis was either.
See?
But
sympathetic character, but she was on there attacking Trump from the right. Said he's humiliated us, he's given everything away, he's done all this. And I don't know what to say about that. It's not like he let a Chinese balloon go across the United States. It's not like Marco Rubio was in Anchorage, Alaska when the Chinese diplomats told him he was an idiot and he just took it. It's not like, there was, I don't know, there's mysterious farmland being bought all up for the first time under Biden right next to military bases. So anyway, that's what's going to, I think the other thing real quickly, Jack, is that I know that I've said we're running out of time, 7 months, 6 months, but it's it started on February 28th, so you had all of March and April, now we're into May, so you're 75, 80 days. I know that now the majority of those days have not been war. People forget that. We were only at war for 42, 41 days. It's been merchandising, haggling, and you can't deal with these people because these radical Islamists don't tell the truth. Right. And what they say means nothing. And even if it did mean something, we don't know who is in charge of these four entities that claim they represent.
Why do we even negotiate?
I don't know. I think we're out of patience, and I think people will tell Trump this week or next, look, you can still, because of the Hikem Jeffries put his party's proverbial head in a noose by bragging that they were going to win the redistricting, and that just antagonized people. The egregious example of California and Virginia. So you're going to see all these Republicans redistrict, and they have more, and they're going to get 10 to 12 seats, and then they're going to race to get rid of the racial gerrymandering. They're already doing it. They're going to get another 4, and we're going to get down to maybe 10 seats. They're going to be contested, and they have they're going to outspin the Democrats, and all they need is 3 months. Maybe 4 months. So we need to wrap this up in 2 or 3 weeks. And then those 250 tankers with 300 million barrels of oil on the ocean. And Russia's output is increasing. Venezuela's, ours is. There's going to be, and then the UAE has left OPEC, is going to pump another 1 million barrels. OPEC's going to dissolve. And you're going to see a crash. But whether that crash will be in time to drop gas down to $2 a gallon, I don't know. But there's a chance it could. And the economy is sound. So what I'm getting at, the pressures are building, and the Iranians think that Trump won't do anything because he's scared of the midterm. I think it's just the opposite. He's sick of them, and they're running out of time, and he will do something. And it will be overwhelming. And then the $64,000 question is, how many missiles and drones did they hide in caches all over the country? It's a huge country, 1.5 times the size of Texas. Right. Where are all those? And are they going to be able to take out the oil refineries of the Gulf? That's it. And I think the Israelis, I have no inside knowledge, but just from reading extensively, I think the Israelis have a list, and they're going to go down, and they're going to get all the Revolutionary Islamic Guard, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, and they're going to go after the theocrats, and then we're going to take out as much of their dual-use targets as we can and try to leave the oil infrastructure, but maybe not the loading and docking, but the pipelines and the storage tanks intact.
What do you? I know I'm springing this on you, but what do you think about the Shah, the son of the Shah? I don't know if he is still considered Shah, like some of these, French royalty, even though France hasn't had a king for 100 years. What do you think about his role? Should Iran revert to, I don't know, democracy, or at least not
Well, we know
away from theocracy?
we know what doesn't work is the nation building in Afghanistan. Maybe it kind of worked in Iraq, but it was a terrible price to pay. The Maduro strongman, get rid of the strongman and the people who are fanatics, and then tell the people who were his supporters, you can stay in power, but you got to do it 1, 2, 3, or we're going to take you out too, and you're going to transition at some point to free elections. That's a better model. So
Yeah.
if you could sit the shot down and say, we will help you get back if the people want you, but you're going to have a timeline. All we want from you is a restoration of the economy and order, and then you can oversee, like kind of Juan Carlos did in Spain with the end of the Franco regime. That's your task, and you'll go down in history as Juan Carlos, a great man. But don't get delusions of grandeur. That's all, and think you're going to rule Iran without an election at some point. But it would be suicidal to go in there and take out all these people and then tell everybody that we're going to send John Kerry over there and, Nicholas Kristof so that they can teach everybody about left-wing version of their, democracy. It's not going to happen.
Nicholas Kristof, I know we talked about it. It was so reprehensible, beyond reprehensible, what he did.
But he's such a great moralist and ethicist.
Yeah.
He lives on a farm in Oregon. Although he was disqualified. Remember, he ran for governor of Oregon in 2002? And the left-wing attorney general disqualified him. He got very angry and said it was political because he was never on his farm. It was just a joke. He was living in, of course, near you on the East Coast, Connecticut probably, or somewhere in New York. So he's an activist, and it's physically impossible. Then he put his head in, to use that metaphor again, in a noose when he said that he had consulted 3 scientific medical articles that showed that animals were able to have sexual intercourse, i.e. canines, with humans. But he didn't answer the question. He didn't allege that. He didn't say, well, there's sick people out there that engage in bestiality, and that's why bestiality is on the books as a crime in many states. No, he didn't say that. He said that dogs could be trained on command to forcibly rape males, and that's impossible. And there's no medical literature that supports that allegation. He made it up. It came from Hamas sources, Euromed. I think they're going to be quiet about it. Their attitude now is just to stonewall, don't talk about it, and put him on I thought he retired anyway, but they brought him back for that huge article. And the whole thing was a setup, as everybody said, because the next day or two, the Israelis came out with a 12,000-word documented, photographs, the cameras right from the Hamas murders and tortures and sick people, and nobody was talking about that. So Kristof, if his purpose was to help Hamas out, it worked, and I think it was. And well, that's another topic, but boy, the Democratic Party has got this weird, I don't know how they did it, meld between left-wing politics, DEI, and this right-wing Islamicism that doesn't allow any freedom of speech, no equity for women, persecutes homosexuals, and that group has now become married to the left-wing Democratic. It's really a democratic socialist. It's really a socialist-Islamic party.
Yeah. Well, it's the old, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So how these bedmates become bedmates.
I guess Chuck Schumer and people all on the left that are Jewish feel that they're not going to come after them, but they will.
They will.
They won't do any good. Bill Maher had a really good take on that when he had kind of had, I couldn't believe it, I had been on his show once and it was a disaster. They said they weren't going to do this, and then they would just, it was attack. They said I was Cheney's guru, and they had Gandalf on there, Ian McClellan. It was a hate fest. And I said to the producer, you lied, and I'm never going to go back up there. And I've never been back there. I never go on there. But I'm going to give him credit. He gave a good talk.
Yeah.
For 8 or 9 minutes.
Did you see who was on with him? David French.
What?
But we won't.
I didn't
we'll talk
see
about
it.
Bill.
Was David French on?
Oh yeah, they cut away to one of the other panelists, and it was him. And I'm like, oh, I winced there for a second.
I was on a panel. You remember on
yes.
one of your cruises? Was it a week after the election of 2016?
Yes.
And I was on a panel, and was there anybody else who was delighted that Hillary lost and Trump won besides me?
Me.
You. But was there any of the writers? No.
I doubt it. Yeah, I doubt it.
So, I was on that panel, there were 8 or 9 of them, and they were attacking me and all this, the doom and gloom and all this, and so I just asked her permissions, I remember, if I could get off at Key West. And I felt like I was free.
You did.
I would rather get a 500-gallon tank of parathion and, I don't know, Defend, dimethoate, and without a respirator, which I did for years, and go spray all day, then stay one more minute on that panel, because it was toxic.
Okay.
Anyway.
All right. Hey, let me, before we go to a spot, I'm going to spring something else. Senator Bill Cassidy from Louisiana, the incumbent Republican, got knocked out this weekend in the primary.
He came in third. Yeah.
I mean,
he voted to impeach Trump. There was no grounds to do that.
yeah.
He got swept away. He's a nice fellow. I think he voted 70% of the time for the MAGA agenda, but on the key issues like the SAVE Act and things, correct me if I'm wrong, he wasn't there.
Yeah.
And then Louisiana, they can get a more conservative candidate that can win.
Right.
Whereas in Maine, he was basically a Susan Collins Republican, but unlike Susan Collins, she's boxed in. She has no choice. Even if she doesn't believe that she's a moderate Romney rhino, she would have to be anyway to get even close in that crazy state.
Right.
And she voted, and she's more or less she'll vote for the president. And so, but he's a different case. He had no excuse. His constituencies were far more conservative than he was.
No question. And same thing of a sort. I think in Indiana there were primaries.
Yes,
and
6 out of 7, I think.
Yeah. Guys who were against the redistricting there, knocked out.
I think what's happening, Jack, is there is a boiling up. I think all of the hate Trump and all of the demonstrators you see out there, I don't even think they vote. I really don't. I just think that the people who vote in an honest election where the ballots have not been mailed in early and they're warped, they're fed up. And they're not just, they're worried about the economy and gas. So am I. But they're just tired of the DEI. They're tired of people like Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom on the TV lying. They're tired of the crime. There's a whole internet, YouTube, TikTok industry now of crime, and they have one theme. I've been examining it just to see if I could write about it. I watched about 2 hours of it. I'd never done that before. Now I watch it, and you know what the main theme is for America right now? It is some guy who's a bully who tries to throw somebody off into a train, or he tries to ram his car and he gets the blank beat out of him by an outraged citizen. And that's some kind of vicarious experience, that genre now. They're just sick of it. And so they want order, they want tradition, they want values, and they're tired of the foul mouth, they're tired of the F word, they're tired of all that, and that doesn't help the Democrats and the
You've
left.
talked about this before. You play by the rules in your own, where you live, and the inspectors that come by. If you play by the rules, if you're law-abiding, your stones are going to get busted. If you don't play by the rules, you can do whatever the hell you want, and no one's going to touch you. And that's
It is. I got a letter yesterday from the county of Fresno. This house has been in my family since 1871. The house. My son was the 6th generation. His kids, if they want to live here, would be the 7th. I got a letter that said, "This is to inform you that we're going to widen your road, and we're going to take 35 feet, and we're going to come out and assess it." And they're going to take this busy road now, mostly because we've got the high-speed rail down there, and there's a truck every minute. I won't mention who's driving them, at about 70 miles an hour, and the road's being worn out. They want to widen it, and I had always done all my yard work myself until I was about 65. And then I got tired, and it was a big job. It was I had a peach orchard out in front of so they came in, they took everything out, they leveled it, they put a sprinkler system, they put cypress trees, redwood trees, it's beautiful. It's right in front of my house, and it's a barrier, so when somebody is intoxicated, which has happened about 8 times in the last 30 years, and they go airborne on Sunday afternoons, they don't go into my yard. But my point is, they're going to destroy all of that, claim it, and then they're going to move the property line right up to my wall.
To the wall?
Yes, right to there. So I'd spent probably, I don't know, $40,000. My entire life I wanted a paved driveway. It's so dusty. I finally afforded it about 15 years ago. They're going to take out the paved driveway. They're going to bring everything right there. And there's no...
Just your side of the road, not the other side of the road?
Yes, because the other side has power poles and cables and everything, and ours doesn't. And the other side has one, in the area they're going to do it, I think it's 1.5 miles, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 houses, and we only have 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
So they're going to widen it, and I have to meet the assessor, and he's going to come out, and it says you can buy your place if you want to sell it, if you think it destroys your value. They'll probably give me, and the other thing is I'm responsible. I beautified the road. It's beautiful when you go by the house. It looks like a Roman villa because of the cypress and the redwood. It looks beautiful, but I am responsible now after paying $30,000 or $40,000 to completely redo it, irrigation, everything. Now I have to tear it all out, and I have to pay for it. That's California, and that's playing by the rules. And I can tell you that there'll be a lot of people, I won't mention where, but they'll just say, I'm not going to do it. You do what you want, but I'm not going to pay. I can't pay. And they will come in and they will, tear up their yard or whatever, and they won't charge them.
Why do they want to widen it's a wide road.
It is a wide road, but it's not that wide when they do it for 2 reasons. From the 99 freeway eastward, it's a 4-lane road now. It's the main, and they want to continue that in our section. I don't know why, but I think it's less habited. So there's in between my 2-lane road and the 4-lane freeway, which is the same Mountain View Avenue. There's an area they're not going to widen, and I think that's because it's heavily populated. But I can tell you what the demand is, or if I go out to get the mailbox, I would say every 2 minutes a 20-ton truck goes by at 65 miles an hour to 70. And they pass each other too. They pass cars, and they're completely, the pavement has been wrecked, and there's a big new trucking company down the road, and this went on for maybe 4 or 5 years to supply the high-speed rail overpass about 4 miles away. They had to, gravel and all that, but that's playing by the rules, and I'll play by the rules. I'll go and hire somebody, and they'll have to take out all the irrigation system. There's old pipelines under there they're going to have to take out. These redwood trees are huge. They're going to have to take out the stumps, and it's going to be a mess. And then I'm going to have a 20-ton truck going 75 miles an hour, 20 miles over the speed limit, which they will never. I have never seen one of the truckers get a ticket. Never, not once, not one time.
Yeah.
And that truck will be, 10 feet from my.
It'll be at your breakfast table.
Yeah. So that the value of the property will be worthless. It really will, unless I can build it. I have a 6-foot wall. I'll have to build it 3 feet higher or something. But the whole idea with the cypress was to protect the tree, and that I bought them. They're very expensive, and I bought them at 7 feet, and they're like 30. They're huge, and I did that because on that side of the road, I've had at least 3 people go airborne,
Yeah,
And I
right.
mean,
Yeah, right.
you know,
Yes, right.
intoxicated drivers weaving and they hit the shoulder and they go into my property. They tear up almond trees, they've torn up vineyard trees, they've torn up everything. And not once has the California Highway Patrol cited any of them. Not once have they asked them to pay. And the one time I got angry, I actually took a tractor and I went out and got the wrecked car. And every single time the driver left, they were all illegal. He left the scene of the accident. Not hurt, apparently. And every time I can think of, except one, there was alcohol in the car that was abandoned. And I went out and I dragged the car with a chain from a tractor. And then I put it around the axle and I chained it and locked it to a big tree. And then I just waited there the next day and I saw about 5 people sneak in, bending down below the trees, and they were trying to get it. And you know what they did? They called 911. And sure enough, when I've called them when they had, we were swatted or anything like that, they don't come. I've had people try to break in my house. I called the sheriff, it was an hour. So anyway, in a nanosecond, here came the highway patrol, and I thought they were going to arrest them. And I said, they have done $5,000 to $10,000 of damage to this vineyard. They have torn out 40 vines, 3 rows in, and the person he left the scene of the accident, and you can see I haven't touched the car. There's about a 6-pack of Coors bottles in here. This is about 15 years ago, 20. And he said, I'm not going to discuss that. You unlock that right now, I'm going to cite you. I said, why? He abandoned his car after he did damage to my property. He owes me $20,000 or $30,000. I've got to replant all these vineyards. They're not going to be in production for, I don't know, 4 years, and it's going to be a lot of work. He said, I don't care. We're going to take the car and we're going to go put it and impound it. And then I said, what? He's going to come and pick it up. I said, what is he going to pay? He said, he'll pay $50 tow fee. I said, are you going to cite him? He said, I wasn't here when he did it. I said, if I get in a car and I swerve all over the road and you see it, would you cite me? He said, yes. I said, if I went over this out of control and I hit a property, wouldn't that be reckless driving? He said, I don't know the circumstances. That's why. He said he could have fallen asleep. I said, isn't that still, whatever the cause, it was a felony, what he did. And that's what they did.
Wow.
And that's why, that's why people, that's part of a long rant about why people are very angry. Because they always go after the misdemeanor from the law-abiding citizen because they either cannot or will not deal with a felony. And you can see that with this really, I talked to him for a half an hour and the guy really was on that topic, Spencer Pratt in LA. And all of those ads he's doing are, these people go after law-abiding citizens. They unleash the homeless on them. They unleash illegal aliens on them. They unleash everybody. And if the law-abiding citizen reacts, then he's
Racist, evil. Yeah.
He had a great commercial when Karen. Now they're accusing him of not staying every night in his trailer.
Right.
And he said, I'm homeless. I have no home. My children have no home. What does it matter whether I stay one night in the trailer and then I want to take a there is no water. There's no, you know what I mean? You haven't restored the water. You haven't done anything. And you won't let me rebuild. And they were going after him for that, Karen Bass and her flock. So I think people are really getting angry about it. I saw it one time before with Prop, 3 strikes and you're out. And that was before the demography changed when everybody left California. But a local radio host, I think you might know him, Ray Appleton. And he's really good. And he single-handedly galvanized the entire Central Valley to turn out for that 3 strikes and out. And then by court decision, they watered it down to nothing.
Just gaslighting.
But it really stopped the crime.
Yeah, there's some international anger we should talk about also, and Fauci, but first, Victor, to our viewers and our listeners, if the last few years have taught us anything, it's that the systems we rely on can fail, and when they do, we're on our own, and that's why we want to tell you about My Patriot Supply, America's original patriotic preparedness company. And they help over 3 million American families get prepared. Since 2008, with more than 90,000 five-star reviews, and right now they've got a special offer that you really need to check out.
Yeah, that's what
when you get their flagship solar backup generator, the ultra-powerful Grid Doctor 3300, you will also get over $1,000 worth of survival essentials absolutely free, 4 weeks of emergency food, water filtration, and much more, all free. It's in stock and ready to ship right now. But with everything going on right now, there's no telling how long it'll be available. So go to preparewithvdh.com right now to see everything you can get for free. Don't wait until it's too late. Get your complete preparedness set up today at preparewithvdh.com. That's preparewithvdh.com. And we thank the good people from My Patriot Supply for sponsoring Victor Davis Hanson in his own words. Victor, we want to get your take on Anthony Fauci and the whistleblower, but just thought to mention that yesterday in England, you talked about one person being able to galvanize, and Tommy Robinson, who is a middle-class bloke, but he's got a mind and an opinion, and he speaks up, and he was put in jail for that, and he's gotten out of jail since. But he organized a rally, I think it was over 1 million, fed up, we're done, we're sick and tired, Brits in London. There was a counter rally. Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, blocked several journalists from coming into the country. Ezra Levant, who I don't know if you know him at all, he's a Canadian journalist. If they were troublemakers, if they were conservatives, the government of Britain was not going to, the place where free speech was supposedly born is not going to let you come in here. I know Glenn Beck went and spoke, but it was remarkable, and people just had it, and I think it's very parallel to the fed-upness, uppiness.
I got really angry when I read that. I got really angry because I don't want to beat a dead horse. I had just done an interview with Piers Morgan. It was really unprofessional, and he brought in this crazy radical professor, and then they both ran it. And I say, why are British subjects here in the United States involving themselves in controversial politics? Of course I wouldn't. And there's thousands of Brits that are in commentary and punditry and influencing. We don't ever say, you're on a visa, you can't engage in political discourse. But they do. And I think Trump he should really extend the tariff idea of reciprocity to everything. And I think he should have told, you can have as many students here as we do in China. You can have as much farmland here as we buy in China. They can be as close to a base here as we are in China. And you can tell the Canadians the same thing. We're going to spend 4% GDP on defense of North America. You spend 4%. You have a 52 billion surplus with us. For the next year, we're going to have a 52 billion with you, and see what happens. And I think we should say the same thing with the British people. If you're going to censor people from America coming in there and they can't comment on your political discourse, then we're going to do the same thing. And I think it would end very quickly. The only thing I couldn't understand was all of the polls show that Labor is coming in third now, behind Reform and behind Conservatives, and then Labor. And then within that unpopularity, Starmer is even more unpopular than the Labor Party, like 8%, 10%. Right. So here you have this populist pushback against the grooming, the rape, the pedophilia, often disproportionately conducted by Pakistani immigrants, many of them there illegally. And you have 15% of, well, in London, I think it's 30 or 40% of people who don't want to assimilate culturally and integrate into the British body politic and tradition. Okay. But the vast majorities of Brits don't want that. So here you're in a popular system of consensual government. Why, I don't know why why is it only the Reform Party? You would think that Stormer would be, he would be like Bill Clinton, he'd latch onto that, you know what I mean? But he's defending this minority of a minority of a minority unpopular position. And it's losing. He's going to destroy he's almost destroyed the Labour Party. And people are going to take power, and it's going to be, I think Farage is going to win. I really do, in the next election. And if he does, there's going to be, all hell is, if I can use that term, not in a, profane sense, it's all going to break loose. And because people are sick of it.
Yeah, but also, on top of, also, Victor, the amount of people who are imprisoned in England now for a bad tweet, whatever bad means, a normal tweet we would see here. So you're silently praying near an abortion clinic and you're arrested for that. You're carrying the St. George flag and you are arrested for that because it's going to upset. Then you take these small towns that have been overnight, their hotels are, everyone's thrown out, and you've got 137, illegal immigrants living there.
And especially you have to put that in the context of all the Western nations, the one nation that really privileged protecting children, protecting animals, treating animals kindly, protecting manners. I was driving once in Britain on a bus, and I saw a guy pull out in front of the other one. And I thought, man, in America that would lead to a fight or a guy. And one guy pulled out, and then he went over and he my window was down, he apologized. The other guy said, apologies accepted, I should have been anticipating you. And they shook hands, and they got back in their car.
Pip, pip, chitty-o.
And that's what we assume, especially rural Britain. I mean, they can be gruff in rural Britain, but it's a very kind, tolerant, traditional society. For it to go from that pole to the exact opposite of just blatant crime and chaos and cultural depravity, I don't see how they can not object to it. Right. And a lot of it was class too. I saw some of the clips. We keep forgetting they do have this problem with class. So Tommy Robinson's accent, the way they dressed, and the people, the left is the upper class, as it is in America, and they look down at that. That's one reason I think they really don't like Trump, among many, that he has gold, kind of like Saddam Hussein's palace. I stayed there for a week when I was embedded. They, American military divided it up into kind of like barracks. Yeah. But you could, in your little hall, they had like a little tiny room.
Did you have a golden toilet, Victor?
Well, yeah, it was like 10 feet by 10 feet for a little cot. And there were, 200 or 300 of them. And you could see little flashes of gold trim on the walls, on the ceilings. And Trump's fascination with gold, or his fascination, with his blonde hair and the Orange Man, that just gets somebody from Carmel, California, or Martha's Vineyard, or the Obama crowd, you know what I mean, or Hillary Clinton. And that's Tommy Robinson, I think.
They showed the various world leaders on their screens, and this was yesterday against Saturday, and it was Uniting the Kingdom rally. So folks want to check it out if they haven't seen it. Anyway, they were showing Macron and others, boo, 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 and then Trump came up. They showed Trump's picture, and the crowd roared. So they love them.
I'll never get over that two scenes when he was at the funeral of the Pope, and he had that all the commentators were well, it's very, you feel embarrassed that black tie, funeral attire, and the president has a blue suit and a red, isn't that very inappropriate? And then almost as soon as they'd said that, he got up and he was swarmed. And he was swarmed by left Merz and Macron. And then when they were rebuilding right after the election, before he was inaugurated, when they were invited, Macron invited him into Notre Dame, remember that? Yeah. He's like, as I said at the time, he's like that line from Shakespeare, you know. He thus strode like a colossus, and we were pygmies beneath his feet, hollow little men, and they were just trying to grab any bit of it they could. They wanted to share in his power.
We don't want to make any religious connotations here, but it kind of reminds you, touch the hem of the garment. You know, it is. There are people that want to do that,
and it's based on a certain thing, and the certain thing, I don't want to be reductionist, but they do that because ultimately, if the U.S. Secretary of Treasury says something about the dollar or the interest rates or the Fed, or a Secretary of State, the President says something about tariffs, or somebody says there's a need to do something and there's 11 carrier groups and 2,500 combat aircraft, and then you compare it to what Britain, that's why they do it. They really do believe they're Socrates and we're Caesar or Augustus. We have the power and we're Roman, subjects of their utopian thought. They want to come up to Trump and tell him, well, we have a problem in Chad. Could you give us refueling right? That's what they want. They want stuff from us. And he can do it. And they can't. So they have all the dreams. We should go have a coalition of the willing and bomb Libya for 7 months. How'd that work? We have a coalition of willing. We're going to bomb Serbia for 70. But, did we say we need you to do it for us? Right. It's like that Aesop's fable with the little mice. The mouse gets up and says, well, we wouldn't be eaten if we knew the cat was coming. And I've got a brilliant idea. We'll just put a little collar around his neck with a bell on it to alert us. And then the little mice, this is in Greek, you can read it. And then the little mice said, but who's going to bell the cat? You? No, not me. I'm not going to bell the cat. You sucker. Well, they think the United States is going to bell the cat.
Well, before we take a break, and when we come back from the break, we will talk about Fauci. I do want to say, since we're talking about the powerfulness of Donald Trump, that he admitted when he met with Xi, and this is after coming back from China, I think he was talking to, maybe it was Brett Baer, but this has to do with Jimmy Lai, and he raised Jimmy Lai's imprisonment and said, come on, let him out. He's older, he's ill. And Trump said, normally when I engage in these things, he did that. Also, there was the pastor, American pastor, and she seemed open to discussing that with Jimmy Lai. Trump said the response was not positive. He said, Xi said, Lai has been sort of my worst nightmare. But Trump said, I do not feel optimistic. But it was very good that he did raise Jimmy Lai with him. I think Jimmy Lai, I met Jimmy, I know him a little. I think he's a British citizen, and the Brits really have done nothing.
It's very funny, I was thinking about that all the bulwark people, the never-Trumpers, Tucker, now all these people say Trump is a dictator, but she would never say to Trump, I wish you wouldn't harass or can we get Tucker out of jail? Can we get Bill Kristol out of jail? They all say he's a fascist or he's satanic or something, but he's not. And he can't let Jimmy Lai out given the system that he operates on. He's sitting on a volcano. And if a very prominent, idealistic, humane critic of him, not some person that's just young and crazy and screams, but Jimmy Lai is a wonderful person. He's made a life of very heroic criticism of the communist totalitarian regime. And they're going to destroy him. But if he lets him out, they're afraid, like Putin is afraid, that there'll be, 1,000 Jimmy Lais pop up in regional, and there will be. And so they're on the back of a tiger. All those they ride the tiger, and if they get off, they're going to be devoured, and they know that. And sometimes they slip off or they're thrown off, and they're devoured. Look at Maduro. Look at Saddam Hussein. Look at Assad. They all have a rendezvous with a bad fate, but for here and now, they think they can't write it out, but they're not going to let a principled critic get out.
Well, Jimmy Lai's fate, I think, is tied to the demise of China. I do think it will not have been a good thing to have arrested him in the first place. But you mentioned Bill Kristol. Let's end this segment with this, just to quote him on X. Yesterday, I'm pro-freedom, pro-law and order, pro-limited government, and pro the Declaration and the Constitution. And so today, I'm a Democrat. So, thank you, Bill.
I remember the Weekly Standard when he raised all that money for that money losing. It was a good magazine, but it was losing money from the beginning. I think Murdoch subsidized it for years.
Well, he was paid $1 million. He was paid a staggering amount of money.
Yeah, he was. He always has been paid a staggering amount. But my first impression from when I heard that was, so you're probably 72 or 73, and you're basically telling us for 50 years, when you worked for Dan Quayle, when you took the role in trying to stop Obamacare, you were the prince of conservative ideas, even though you never really wrote, you didn't write books or anything, but you were the spokesman for the conservative, along with probably people like William F. Buckley and George Will. And now you're telling us that was all a lie. And it was all a lie because you've completely refuted every position you ever held. Because Donald Trump, you didn't like him. And you felt. But even though, if you look at the agenda that Donald Trump did in his first term and second, border security, reduction in crime, deterrent foreign policy, pro-Israel, eliminating existential threats like Baghdadi, Soleimani, the Wagner Group, Maduro, the Iranian nuclear facilities, no New Green Deal, emphasis on traditional transitional fuels, gas, oil, coal. That's nuclear. That's everything you told us. And now you've completely refuted it not because the message necessarily, because of the messenger. And your ego was hurt. And now out of spite, you're trying to reject everything. Not trying to reject it, you're trying to work hard to make sure that no American has conservative governance. And that's what he's doing.
Hell hath no fury like a runt.
I admire people who say, I don't admire them necessarily agree with, but I can understand when they say, I don't like Trump, he's too uncouth, he's too foul, but his agenda is it's what I want. There's nothing in that agenda that is not conservative. So I'm going to vote for him. And I agree with him on 90% of the agenda, and I don't agree the way that he does it.
Also, the alternatives are Marxist, so...
Yeah, it's not a Democrat. It's a very good point. It's not Democratic alternative. It's not Bill Clinton. I'm going to get 100,000 police officers. It's not even Obama. It's Democratic Socialist Communism now. And
maybe that's what he should have said.
He said he was for big government.
Today I'm a communist.
So he says that I'm for little government at a time when you're looking at in Chicago, in Minneapolis, in Maine, in California, you're probably looking at $250 billion of stolen funds from bureaucracy, and you're saying, and it's all managed by Democrats, and you're saying that you're for that party because they're for small government. No, that's not what you're saying, Bill Kristol. You're saying basically that I'm going to flip completely over because I have been such a useful idiot for the left, and they have so paid me and subsidized me that I have to, at various points in my tenure for them, my servitude for them, I have to say certain things that replenish my credibility that I am a left-wing radical, and then they will continue to subsidize the bulwark.
I like the word servitude. That's
what it is.
Nails it, yeah.
Unless he really wants us to believe that he got up one day and said, my whole life was a lie. Oh my gosh. Does anybody believe that? I can see it if Donald Trump was a liberal, he said, we need Black Lives Matter, we need more DEI, we need the open border. I agree, basically. I can even see it if he was kind of a McCain figure. Oh, the Republican Party is just a rhino, whatever. But he's a conservative, or at least his policies are. And they dovetail exactly what he told us, millions of conservatives, that this is what you should do. And he was well paid for it. And now he's very well paid for saying everything I said before, just cancel out, forget it was a lie. Now, what I've said the last 4 years is what is true, and the last 50 years was a lie. And that's true of all those guys, all of those were Trumpers.
All right, speaking of liars, we're going to talk about the whistleblower, CIA whistleblower, who appeared before the Senate committee to talk about what Anthony Fauci and other leaders in government did to cover up where COVID emanated from. And we'll get Victor's take on that. If we have any time left, about some Gavin Newsom and some California politics when we come back from these important messages.
Since the founding of America 250 years ago, many things have changed, but some things never do. The commitment of husband and wife, the importance of passing along our values to our children, the faithfulness of God. Some wonder how we can ensure America will continue to thrive. As long as we keep first things first, we've only just begun. America, the beautiful.
We are back with Victor Davis Hanson in his own words, trying to speak English correctly, Victor. I'll get there eventually. We're recording on Sunday, May 17th, 2026. This episode's up on Tuesday, May 19th. Victor's website, The Blade of Perseus, is a thing to which you can subscribe at $6.50 a month. But if you want to take the discount, do the full year, and it's $65. It's like getting 2 free months. Why would you do that? Because twice a week, Victor writes an exclusive article for The Blade of Perseus, and once a week he does an exclusive video. And there's tons of free stuff there. Anyway, archives galore, so you can spend all day just rummaging around and getting your VDH on. But if you don't subscribe, you're not going to be able to read the article. So I heartily recommend it. And I've said this on the previous podcast, I think it makes a great gift. So Mom, Dad, somebody like Father's Day, Dad is coming up, well, consider it as a gift. Okay, Victor, just to torture people further with the sound of my voice, here's the headline. CIA whistleblower alleges cover-up of COVID-19 lab leak intelligence. Spy scientists repeatedly concluded that a lab accident caused the COVID-19 pandemic, but more senior bureaucrats watered down and suppressed their conclusions. A CIA senior operations officer testified to Congress on Wednesday. His name is James E. Erdman III. He described under oath in a hearing called by Rand Paul on Wednesday a pattern of obstruction that promoted the conclusions of a tight-knit group of virologists close to Anthony Fauci, while downplaying the conclusions of the intelligence community's own biological experts. It goes on, Victor. I think most people probably have heard about this. So would you comment on this? And also, we've talked about it before, Stephen Quay, who's been your guest on podcasts, is also up for running this department. Go ahead, please.
Well, what it basically was is that Donald Trump came into office in 2017, 18, 19, and 2019, the economy was booming by November. And then we had this mysterious virus in which all of the medical community, if you remember what Hillary said, she said it was a gift from God because it destroyed the momentum of Donald Trump. And then all of the agencies, the deep state administrative, whatever you want to call it, that includes these middle to high level CIA people, And Donald Trump, the first administration, remember, he did not. He said, I had only been to Washington 10 or 15 times in my life. And he didn't really know that it was not just, there was no really Democratic Republican antithesis as far as the bureaucracy. It was all left. And he got people in there. They're fine people. Bill Barr, John Bolton, Jim Mattis, I know, John Kelly, you name them. But they were not ideologically akin to what he wanted. And they felt that Donald Trump was a dangerous character. And their duty was not just to carry out his directives and use their expertise to expedite his agenda, but to stop it. So it was that context. So when Donald Trump came out, very early he said it was a China virus. And he started saying things. Why did they stop travel outside of Wuhan in China but not to our countries? Because they were spreading it. And we're going to get out of the WHO. That was an anathema. That was a heresy. He was an apostate as far as the bureaucracy. So in that context, Anthony Fauci and Francis Collins and the hierarchy of the National Institutes of Health, the CDC, the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, Fauci's turf. And by the way, by title, he wasn't the important person, but by tenure and aggrandizement and the money at his disposal, he was running them all. And so they had felt that it had been unwise to stop gain-of-function research. And it wasn't that dangerous, and they wanted to keep going. So they green-lighted the sale of instrumentation to that Wuhan lab. They encouraged people to go over there, and they directed at least $600,000 to the arch-villain Peter Daszak, who stealthily was funding it in a small but symbolic way. And they were not capable. They either were not capable of ensuring safety because they were amateurs. The French built the thing, and they didn't understand how it worked. People had gone over there and said this is a disaster waiting to happen, or the PLA came in and was running it very quickly, and they had military concerns. It might have been a bioweapon tangential operation, we don't know, and it leaked. And then Fauci thought, oh my gosh, this thing, it killed a million Americans, and 50 million, but that number was just artificially low. I got it twice. I had long COVID for the first time 6 months, second time 4 months. The mass that I had in my lung, the ground glass opacity, one of the radiologists said this is from some type of infectious inflammation that you had, and probably was what caused the mutation. But all of us have those stories about how it affected their lives. And he was responsible for it. Fauci was. And Collins knew that. And so they got together right after that, and they tried to hide it. And part of that hiding is they need an official imprimatur from an investigative agency. And so they called the CIA, and it was not really under a Trump person at the time. And they said, we've got to stamp out this right-wing Donald Trump, racist, whatever language they needed to convince them. It wasn't much, because the people we know from the FBI and from John Brennan CIA and from Peter Strzok, they hated Trump. Director of National Intelligence and CIA, they all hated him. So they tried to cover this up and tried to say, we need an official investigation. And there was a whistleblower and said, you people are lying. All of the people in the field have gone over there and have looked at this. If it looks like a duck and it sounds like a duck, it's a duck. Oh my gosh, there's a level 4 biology lab right in Wuhan. It started in Wuhan. They've never found an animal that transmitted the disease to a human. There is no evidence that people got it in the pack. The people who got the virus came out of the lab. The people who tried to call attention to it are missing. And they kept at it. Peter Daszak got Lancet one of the most prestigious journals in the world on medicine. They got them to make a phony investigation to say it was a pangolin. And that was it. Nicholas. I'm trying to remember his name. Nicholas. He was at the New Yorker. He was a scientific writer. He was in his 70s, and he was really good. And he wrote about it very courageously, and they even audited him, and they fired him. And Tom Cotton wrote it. Remember that op-ed that said it came from the Wuhan lab, and they went nuts. And now we know why. And then we know why that.
Well, what do you know? For a change,
why Biden pardoned them,
here.
because he knew they were culpable. The only thing that's a mystery now, the statute of limitations are over. They're pardoned for their sins, but they're not pardoned for their future sins. So I think it'll be very hard for Fauci or Collins to come back into Congress and testify under oath, because they will ask them point blank, did you or did you not fund this? Did you or did you not write this email? Did you or didn't? And if they lie, they're subject to prosecution. And this administration will prosecute them. And so that'll be interesting to see what happens. As far as Fauci, he did so much damage, to the. You don't need a mask. Who needs a mask? Oh, you need one mask. You don't get two masks. It's better. We don't know whether the vaccine. It's such a new virus. The vaccination will prevent you from getting infected, and it will prevent you from infecting others. And then when they had the breakout case, like 7 months, I got COVID 6 months after I was vaccinated. I got vaccinated early March of 2021. 2020. I got vaccinated in March, and I got I had 3 COVIDs. But the first wasn't as bad as the last 2. But anyway, my point was, it didn't work. And it didn't stop people from maybe mitigating the effects, but it also had certain side effects we don't need to get into. So that's a disaster. We had Stephen Quay. He came on here. He was the PhD, MD researcher. He was very well known at Stanford Medical Center because he was the one that invented or found a dye contrast for magnetic resonance imaging, MRIs. Nuclear, I think it is, gadolinium, I think it's called, or something like that. And he's, he had a company, I think he still does, that has immunotherapy for breast cancer, etc., etc. And he's been mentioned as somebody who might take over the now vacant National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. And he'd be a wonderful choice. And I hope and he's a conservative, and as much as a medical person is political, but he's not going to be some raving. He's competent and he believes in the Trump agenda, so I think it'd be a wonderful appointment.
Yeah. He's eloquent also. His podcast with you, I think you did 3 interviews with him, were just some of the finest discussions I've ever heard.
I'm going to have him on next week, I think, about the hantavirus.
Okay.
He wrote me about it. I mean, the way people were talking about it, they were talking about it as if it's a COVID-like, it's going to take over the world. I think he's had a lot of experience with infectious disease. And he's been, he's very competent, so I think I'm looking forward to that.
Well, let's close out today, Victor. We'll leave some other topics for our next episode, but the headline here, Gavin Newsom reveals break glass emergency plan to block Republican governor. So a lot of people I think California may be the only state where in a primary the top 2 finishers of the primary become the candidates in the final election, and that's happened any number of times. You have 2 Democrats who are running against each other for the United States Senate, for example. That I think came about in 2010. It kind of reminds me of now of Virginia, where hey, we don't want this. Oh, now we're in power, we want this, yes. And now we don't want. So I think
they foisted it on us.
Yeah. So what are the Democrats looking at? Well, Steve Hinton's in first place according to polls, and you're there. I don't know the sheriff's name, but it's possible two Republicans can come out and won two positions in the primary. Yes.
It was, but when they took out Swalwell and then they got others to drop out, Villarosa's not going anywhere, Steyer's imploded, Kathleen Porter, so they only have Becerra, and he's not, he's neck and neck with Hilton, and Chad Bianco is a little bit behind. Anything can happen. I think the polls will overrepresent. There's two known unknowns. These polls, I think, underrepresent. In California, they do, conservatives, because they don't want to voice anything about what they feel because they're put upon. And the other is, we don't look at voter fraud as voter fraud here. When the DMV a few years ago said, oh, by the way, we mailed out 100,000 ballots to illegal aliens, it was just like, well, I mean, what's the difference? Why you get angry? So when you have mail-in balloting and early balloting in California, and you don't check the voter roll, it's very hard. I think where I am in a congressional seat, twice or three times, the person who lost Democrat on election day, everybody said he won because of the SCIU, get out the vote, mail-in balloting, etc. And he did. He lost on election day, and then everybody just waited around. California takes 3 weeks. So the left does not look at welfare fraud or election and balloting tampering as unethical or crimes. They say that the ruling white oppressor capitalist oligarchic is toxic, and so anything you can do there, it's not just social murder. If you're Luigi, they commit social murder, they commit social crime, so you can be a social assassin. That's what Luigi Mangione is, that's what Hassan Piker said. So if you need to rig the ballots or you need to spread the wealth with federal and state monies, that's fine, because it rectifies an injustice by the system.
You have a Saul Alinsky. That's their template game book.
Saul Alinsky was here right now. You'd have to be very careful, unless you'd have to really come out like Bernie Sanders.
I was just
to hate Israel, and that you'd have to do that every day because they would turn on it.
I have to go back and watch a firing line from 1968 or so. He and Buckley had him on the show. I saw it a long time ago. Fascinating stuff.
It's very funny. My father had I think I mentioned it to you, a lecture series.
Oh, yeah.
And we did all of the yeoman work and helped set up chairs so he could pay these people a lot of money. So in Little Reedley, California, in the 60s, and I think up till early 70s, he had Pearl Buck and Gore Vidal and Louis Leakey and all those people. But there were some people who complained and said that they were either conservative, they weren't, but they wanted Saul Alinsky. And he wanted a fantastic fee. My dad really didn't know who he was. So they had Saul Alinsky. And so...
Did he eat dinner at your house?
Well, no. What happened was, immediately, Cesar Chavez heard about it. So they got... The tickets were free, but you had to have a ticket. So they went and got all these tickets. Well, they only had 3,000 or 2,000 in the auditorium, the basketball court, junior college. So they moved it to the convention center where there was 5, I think, or 6 or more, and it was sold out. So then all of a sudden, all these agribusiness people said, wait, he's a commie. So they called my dad up and said, what the heck are you doing? He's a commie. You're spending our tax dollars on a commie. And so my dad said to my mom, is he a commie? He knew he was an organizer.
Right.
He said, I thought he was kind of like George Meany or somebody. He said, no. My mom said, well, he's very radical. Yeah. And then my dad got stubborn. He said, well, Saul Alinsky called up and said, this is great. He loved it, that was going to be this huge crowd in Fresno because it was a UFW had taken it over the audience. And so he said, I'm coming. It's very brave of you. And then my dad thought, well, nobody's going to push me around, right? Free speech. And then they called the anemic president of the college, and he told my father to cancel it. And that was basically the end of the lecture series.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, Linsky,
He was
I'm
a
almost
creepy guy, though, I know.
I'm embarrassed to even mention this brief anecdote, but part of it, he would do anything strategically to upset whatever the target was.
Yes,
So
rules
it
for
was to
radical.
upset the Rochester Symphony, and he said, you know what? He suggested a bunch of black guys go to lunch and eat a ton of baked beans. I can't believe I'm telling this.
No, you did.
Go to
You
the
did.
symphony and have, like, pardon of my French, a fartathon to disrupt the symphony. Like, who thinks this way?
He was the one that
Volinsky,
really introduced. It had been done, but he mainstreamed the idea that politics is all inclusive. So if you're going to be on a board, like take Rebecca Mercer, who's a friend of mine, who's a very wonderful person. She gives big philanthropist, and she was on the she was on the Museum of Natural History, I think in New York, and they went after her. And remember, they moved statues as well, wasn't it?
Teddy Roosevelt.
Yeah, so he was the guy who said you go through museums, foundations, and you get rid of everybody. And that's why it was in his tenure that the Rockefeller flipped, the Guggenheim flipped, Ford Foundation flipped. I mean, they had been left of center liberal, but they weren't commie, nutty, crazy like they are now. That's when the ABA, all of them. Because his whole philosophy was you get up every morning and every aspect of society has to be weaponized by the left. Schools, academia, culture, sports, everything. And that's really what happened to our society. So we got, Colin Kaepernick. You say, I want to just get away from this for a second. You turn on the TV, there's Colin Kaepernick take a knee. I can't take this anymore. I've got to get out of here, so I'm going to turn on a basketball game or something. And then here is LeBron James, reading, I don't know,
saluting China.
Yeah, and then Steve Kerr, is that his name, the coach of the Warriors? He's giving a lecture of why he's
That's a phenomenon.
dealing with these genocidal
Give me another
Chinese.
P word.
So that was Saul Alinsky's legacy. Everything is political.
Preposterous.
And that's how he is responsible for the left's takeover of the cultural institution.
March through all the institutions. There's nothing, nowhere to hide. Well, Victor, we're going to wrap this up as we do at the end of our podcast. We have a ton of comments that people have left. YouTube, Rumble, your website, Apple. I have 4 to read. One is from Lynette Poloka. Poloka. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Oh my goodness, Victor and his knowledge help America realize our strength. How can propaganda hope to win when we have the truth? Thank you, VDH and friends. Then Donnie Ed 9432 writes, I want one of those Daily Signal caps. Now it looks like the professor has a white one. That was the other day. They have a white one for summer, too hot for black one in summertime. Could wear it
I
in
gotta
Epic
get
Times
more.
too.
I had an implant surgery and I left it, I think, at the dentist office. My Daily Signal, I need it. But I'm wearing, because of my other affiliation, the Hoover Institute.
Yeah, I think
Your white hat that you were wearing the other day was also Hoover.
Yes, it was a Hoover Institute. But you
Rob Louie, if you're watching,
Yeah,
send
Rob, we
Victor
need a lot more Daily
some
Signal.
hats.
Yeah.
Raman Moab writes, an Iranian watching from Norway. Keep the amazing work, Victor. The people following leftists in the U.S. don't know what Islamic Republic brought to us Iranians in 1979. Otherwise, they wouldn't cheer these Qatari-backed leftists in New York City or the kind. Amen, brother. And then finally, Texas Reaper writes, Mr. Hansen, you have a calming influence on me. When I listen to you, thanks for being present in my life. I look forward to seeing you each day. I hope your health, thank you, improves. I'm Jack Fowler, and I rate Civil Thoughts, the free weekly email newsletter. Go to civilthoughts.com, sign up. It comes out every Friday. 14, 15 recommended readings. Totally free. We're not selling your names. I know you're going to like it. Thanks to those who do that. Again, Victor's website, The Blade of Perseus. Do subscribe and go to Amazon and order Victor's book coming out in a few months.
Yes,
Counter Revolution. All right. Well, you've been terrific, Victor. I love what you did today. Love all the analyses, and thanks for doing that. Thanks, folks, for watching and listening, and we'll be back soon with another episode of Victor Davis Hanson in his own words.
Bye, everybody, for listening and watching.
Yeah, no, they're fucking the kids. Many people are being absolutely weird. It's insane. It's so immoral.
Thank you for tuning in to the Daily Signal.
Comprehending
Please
that,
like,
taking
share, and
matters into
subscribe
their own hands.
to be notified for more content like
And
this.
many do.
And also check
Many
out
do
my
with
own
those
website
capabilities on.
at
And the sad part is we're dealing with a lot of
victorhanson.com.
people that do those things because someone offended them or kicked a dog or they're racist, so they deserved it. Yeah, it's like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. You're an idiot. That's exactly what we're trying to stop. What train do you think you were on? Yeah, it's ridiculous, and it puts a lot of children and people in our communities in danger. But those rich kids have never really understood that. They just swoop through, playing, swelling.
Dozens of top Iranian leaders, including Ayatollah Khamenei, have been killed in U.S.-Israel joint strikes on Iran.
Iran has a tradition. That tradition was interrupted for 47 years by the theocratic regime.
I'm sitting down with China analyst Gordon Chang to unpack how these strikes are reshaping the global balance of power and why Beijing is feeling the heat.
I believe that President Trump is going after the Chinese, and he's not doing it directly, but he is doing it indirectly, and he's cutting off their sources of support. This is the struggle of our lifetimes, and we better recognize it.
This is American Thought Leaders, and I'm Yanya Kellett. Gordon Chang, it's such a pleasure to have you back on American Thought Leaders.
Thank you so much, Jan.
Yes, I know.
So Gordon, hot off the presses, China's UN ambassador on this March 1st emergency session at the UN.
Maybe this thing's bigger than we thought. A lot bigger.
Without power, our ecto-containment system will go belly up in 60 seconds.
What does that mean?
It means if you have any vacation time, take it now.
Right, because when this thing blows, we're going to be up to our eyeballs in angry spirits and demons.
Gentlemen, don't take this the wrong way, but in 50 seconds, we die. 48.
Not without dinner.
47. 46.
Well, Ray, any suggestions? We could get the generator from the Ecto-1. Right, and we need a pedal locomotion device. Right.
36 seconds.
I got it.
Better hurry!
Pedal locomotion device? Easy.
5 seconds.
Hurry!
4. 3.
Hey!
1. 0.
We're still doing it. So when can we stop?
I wouldn't quit just yet. I'm still getting PKE surges from Brooklyn.
Don't these ghosts ever learn? Everybody into the car.